whaling ends today.
Are you an eco-pirate? That's the word I've heard.
We go against criminal operations. We're really an anti-poaching organization, but we paint our ships black and fly the Jolly Roger to scare them, and it works.
This is how Paul Watson defines success. Forcing 700-ton ships out of the water and away from the whales, seals, and sharks he has vowed to protect. His organization, the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, sails the world's seas from Vancouver to Antarctica using extreme tactics to get the job done.
When people actually say this is terrorism, do you think they're dead wrong?
If I was a terrorist, I wouldn't be standing on this beach talking to you. I'd be in jail.
But terrorist is what he's been called, and more. Cult leader, violent, dangerous, and illegal. Watson, who even has his own TV show, Whale Wars, that tracks his missions, says he doesn't care what anyone thinks of him.
I measure our success by the number of enemies that we have. The more people we piss off, the more we realize that we're making a difference.
How many whales do you think you've saved?
Well, 305 this year, 500 the year before, 500 the year before that, 83 the year before that. The Japanese are targeting endangered whales in an established whale sanctuary in violation of a global moratorium on whaling. I mean, they're blatantly illegal.
And so, in his eyes, Watson's more vigilante hero than eco-criminal.
Well, I think in the world today, anybody who does anything somebody else disagrees with, they just dismiss it as terrorism.
Watson was a founding member of Greenpeace in 1971, a group he abandoned 6 years later when ideological differences caused a rift.
Now they're the world's biggest feel-good organization. You join them to feel good, not to solve the problem.
Solving the problem, says Watson, is about taking action, no matter what the consequences.
They are attempting to throw Potsy overboard.
Putting others, including his own crew, in harm's way.
And they shot at us.
Has that worked to keep you away?
No, but they do attack us. But see, they attack us unrestricted. They're trying to kill us.
But who's really breaking the law? Legally, it's a very gray area. While international whaling has come under very harsh restrictions, some governments, like Japan, don't recognize the laws. But they do recognize a threat when they see one.
You're too close to the whales. You're too close to the whales.
The Japanese just publicly said you're a terrorist?
Yeah, Japan has, but they haven't charged me. Here's the interesting thing. There is no crime called eco-terrorism. It doesn't exist. You know, arson's a crime, murder's a crime, kidnapping's a crime, but eco-terrorism, there's no such thing.
But damaging property is a crime. We sat down with Watson and took a look at some video of his group's activities, some quite dangerous, and asked him to explain why he doesn't think he's committing a crime.
We're not ramming them. What we're doing here is blocking the slipway of the Nishan Maru. They're trying to offload a whale, and we're blocking them. So they're maneuvering in there. They could have avoided that. They're faster and they're more maneuverable than we are. That's a harpoon boat.
But you know you're going to collide here.
No, we're holding our position. We're not going to back off. So we hold our position behind the slipway to prevent them from offloading whales.
The FBI is well aware of Sea Shepherd, and they say Watson is a master of navigating murky legal waters, which is why they're keeping close tabs on him.
We're very aware of their activities. When you're talking about environmental extremists, they're very well informed as far as how far they can go, staying just this side of the law.
But Watson is unflagging in his efforts, believing his group's tactics are the only way to make a change.
Our clients are whales and sharks and seals. And as I told people in other groups that disagree with us, you find me a whale that disagrees with what we do, I'll listen to it.
It takes 2,179 tons of carbon dioxide to make one season of the Fox counterterrorism drama 24. That's over 100 times the average American's yearly carbon footprint. Which is why, when the producers announced they were going carbon neutral, they really set off an explosion of skepticism.
It was obviously a very improbable kind of show, I think, to start doing it with, because we blow stuff up and we have car chases.
But the greening of the show came from the chairman of the corporation.
This came from Rupert Murdoch himself, and when you get that kind of an initiative coming down from the top, it's a little bit easier to make everybody else kind of fall into line.
News Corp, which owns Fox Broadcasting Company, which owns 24, proclaimed they wanted to clean up their act.
Let's go now.
So 3 years ago, they decided to go carbon neutral by 2010.
our footprint is 650,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents or thereabouts.
Eliminating that much CO2 would be like removing almost 115,000 cars from America's roads.
Here at 24, we are committed to reducing our impact on climate change.
Kiefer is really obviously the first person we went to when we decided to do this.
And once Sutherland and other key players were on board, the cleanup began. Through greener production practices like providing bicycles for the crew to get around the soundstage, the show was able to reduce its Season 7 carbon footprint by 43%. But if you're a 24 fan, you might be wondering why you haven't noticed anything different.
It's kind of behind the scenes more than in front of the camera.
Which is why we went behind the scenes to find out how a show this big can zero out its emissions.
We've evaluated pretty much everything, from the travel of the crew and the talent to the fuels and electricities used on the production sets themselves, and then all of the travel that goes along with scouting out different sites for shoots.
Next came the obvious but difficult task of getting a large cast and crew to change their behavior, from disposing of trash.
They take them off-site and recycle everything for us.
To water bottles.
We now use these small canteens, which we give to all of our crew members and our cast.
To using less paper.
Any paper trail, basically, is all now stored electronically.
And it's not just the little things. The producers invested some serious money into powering their production more cleanly.
A big ticket item was also investing in a biodiesel generator rather than the old diesel generator that we had. It burns a lot cleaner and a lot more efficiently.
Don't move! Get on your knees now!
But realistically, getting neutral footprint is not possible in this world right now.
It's not possible to get to zero, that's true, so that's where the offsets come in.
And that's also where the controversy comes in. When 24 finished reducing their emissions, they purchased carbon credits from a wind farm in India to get them carbon neutral.
Is it important to you that we need to figure out a number that you can associate with the kinds of offsets that you've purchased?
It's a very tricky area, this whole carbon measurement and the offsets and all of that. I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit of art mixed with a lot of science.
Critics argue that offsetting discourages individuals and businesses from changing their behavior to better the environment. But News Corp contends that their intentions are honorable.
This isn't a way for us to say we're going to go about business as usual, just as we always were.
This threat is not over.
The cast and crew of this popular television show say that carbon offsets are just one weapon in their arsenal, used in the battle against global warming.
I do think that it will inevitably lead to significant changes in behavior and reductions in people's carbon footprints.
Though they're struggling, our national parks remain showcases of this country's natural beauty and historical significance. And if the First Lady, Laura Bush, has her way, these same parks will also become models of energy efficiency and clean technology. I spoke to Mrs. Bush to learn more about what our Park Service is doing. The national parks, is this your great passion?
It is one of my great passions. I've loved the national parks since I went to Carlsbad Caverns, New Mexico when I was 8 with my Girl Scout troop. And I've hiked for years in the national parks with women that I grew up with in Midland. And we've hiked in all the big western parks from, Denali in Alaska to Yellowstone, Glacier, Yosemite. And then this year we hiked on the East Coast in Acadia National Park in Maine.
The energy, the interior are now trying to really overhaul the national parks for more sustainability and efficiency.
That's right. And the parks really have been leaders anyway, certainly all of the big natural landscape. But now they're working together to see what they can do to make sure they are really energy efficient.
When I think about the national parks, think of the possibility of turbines in national parks. Is that really something that would happen?
Certainly, that could be something that people would use, and I think that'd be smart. I've been in national parks. I've stayed in a ranger cabin that was that we used a solar generator. We had a little solar panel outside, and that's how the cabin was lit and how we had hot water for showers. And then, of course, I've also camped where we literally have the solar shower, the big plastic filled with water that lies out in the sun. And if you don't have a sunny day, you don't have a warm shower. For sure.
It's amazing. 10 years ago, I think you and I didn't really think about solar. We didn't think about turbines. We didn't think about these things that are now really sweeping across the country.
Well, that's right.
Is it
But
going
I
fast
did think
enough?
about those things, and I built a house 8 years ago that has water collection and geothermal heat. And,
So you're ahead of most Americans.
well, I don't know about that, but I have thought about that a lot.
Do you think we just waited too long to try to do these kinds of improvements and
Well,
get more
I think
efficiency?
people just didn't really know about them, and of course, one of the reasons we have such a strong economy is because we've had cheap fuel forever since World War II. But when you think of petroleum as being a limited, finite product that eventually will run out of, it's amazing that it was so cheap.
Do you think people really
it's
started?
It's always been cheap for us here in the United States.
So really the big turn of this was when the price of
Prices
gas
went up, and then of course people worried about global warming made people start to think about all the issues surrounding energy. But I think it's really important for people to do what they can, and it might just be small. It might just be punching off your strip on your computer every night, and that really will save money too.
Do you believe in global warming?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm like everybody else. I read the different reports, some skeptical, some say it's a definite thing, but it doesn't really matter whether you believe in it. What matters is whether or not we can conserve like we want to. All of the resources in the world are finite, and we need to be able to preserve them and limit our use of them. One of the things we've done here at the White House, which is we've started relighting the White House, the outside exterior lighting that of course comes on every night, so because we're a monument that people want to see, and it's on till 11 o'clock at night. And we're now using LED lights, and that's light emitting diodes. And we expect to save about 50%, or maybe more than 50%, in both energy cost and in wattage by using this new light. It's a very pretty light. It lights the house really whiter than the halogen lighting that we had before that was sort of yellow.
The relighting project resulted in a 27% energy reduction. That's right there at the Washington Monument.
That's right, and they did the same thing earlier. A couple of years ago, I think the Washington Monument was relit, and they've had a big savings. And it's so beautiful the way the lights wash the monument and make it look so pretty. And I think the White House, if people notice, will think it's a lot prettier light too.
Well, it's snowing right now. Can we take a look at it outside?
Let's do. Should we go out?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You can see how beautiful this view is of the Washington Monument and the Jefferson.
So how does the lighting differ?
Well, it's just a beautiful soft wash on the walls of the Washington Monument, and it really looks very, very lovely.
And you think it's 27% more efficient?
Supposedly it is, and it's just because of the different kind of light fixture, the LED light that they're using there now.
Do you think we should all be doing this for our own homes at home?
I think we should, but I also think it's really important when you start to change things in your home to don't change in midstream and get rid of your old carpet and make yourself buy a new one. You know, wait really until things wear out. I think that's the best way to conserve.
And the hope is you're going to save money later by having this kind of efficient, sustainable fuel. Well, it's beautiful. Thank you so much.
It is. Thank you very
really
much,
nice to
Bob.
meet you.
So good to see you.
In order to fully understand what the future of a nuclear world might hold, we need to fully understand the past.
The towering cloud of the atomic age is a symbol of security for freedom-loving people everywhere.
This is the first image of nuclear power. It started with a secret project to create the most powerful weapon on Earth.
All the Allies knew that research was going on elsewhere, in particular in Nazi Germany, and so there was a security pressure to not be late to the game.
The race for the atomic bomb, and of course its actual use against Japan at the end of World War II, is what created the notorious legacy of nuclear energy. It's the fear of a proliferation of those very nuclear weapons that's kept nuclear energy from being pursued the way it might have been here in the United States. But the idea of splitting atoms started long before that image of mushroom clouds.
The initial discoveries led back to the early work by Madame Curie, Albert Einstein, a number of others, and what it would take to liberate that energy from the nucleus of materials.
Experiments with primeval atomic power led to the splitting of the uranium atom.
the energy-rich radioactive element uranium was the fuel of choice.
By 1939, it became apparent that very large amounts of energy could be released from the atoms of uranium.
As the uranium nucleus splits, some of its mass is converted to heat energy. This is called fission. In 1939, Albert Einstein was already seeing the implicit danger of nuclear fission. He wrote to President Roosevelt, warning that the Germans would likely develop atomic weapons and urged the United States to pursue nuclear research. By the early 1940s, the Manhattan Project was in full swing in a race to build the first atomic bomb. And we did.
With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction.
After World War II, it was no longer the atomic bomb, but atomic energy that lit the imagination of American citizens. The U.S. government decided to experiment with powering American towns with small nuclear reactors. The first was built in 1951 and powered the small town of Arco, Idaho. The trial was a success, and soon plants were proliferating. But in the 1980s, the flaws of the technology were exposed in high-profile accidents, especially at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, where in 1986, a reactor exploded, sending large amounts of radioactive debris into the atmosphere, resulting in 400 times more nuclear fallout than the bomb at Hiroshima. The Chernobyl disaster triggered global fear about the safety of nuclear power plants and is largely credited for the halt in nuclear power expansion here in the United States. Today, the U.S. has 103 commercial nuclear power plants that supply 20% of our nation's electricity.
If you're looking for greenhouse gas-free energy, nuclear plants in the United States today are an exceptionally reliable source of that energy.
However, unlike other forms of power, the waste is highly toxic.
Nuclear power plants generate large amounts of radioactive waste, which have to be ultimately disposed in a manner where they protect human beings for hundreds and hundreds of centuries.
But it isn't only the storage of waste that presents a problem. There's worry that many of our aging nuclear plants were built without safety precautions, including defense against terrorist attacks. And there's the fact that nuclear plants are expensive and time-consuming to build.
We'll have to see a growth in nuclear power that would be comparable to trying to put a nuclear power plant online once a week, once a month for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And we just don't have the means to do this.
But perhaps the biggest obstacle of all here at home is the dark shadow cast by 3 Mile Island, where in 1979 part of the nuclear core melted, releasing those highly toxic elements into the atmosphere.
The discussion over the worries about nuclear power that were already in many people's minds were elevated.
A symbol of all that could go wrong. We'll take you behind the gates for an exclusive look at the progress and the problems of this infamous nuclear power plant.
It's a beautiful day for baseball. But at the Cleveland Indians ballpark, clear days have an added benefit. On the upper deck, 42 solar panels soak up the sun, producing enough power for the stadium's 400 TVs.
The point is not to take money off the Cleveland Indians' electric bill. It's really to be a showpiece for the community, to show our fans and people who have never seen a solar panel before that, hey, it works in this climate, it works in this region.
It's part of a green initiative launched 2 years ago. The Indians now recycle 140 tons of trash each year, including a whopping 2,000 pounds of cardboard each game. In the clubhouse, players use refillable bottles. Uniforms are washed with milder detergents.
We got a cleaner drainage going out instead of having some harsh chemicals left behind.
And in the stands, vending cups are made from biodegradable cornstarch.
Does that make that beer taste any better?
You know, now that I know that it's corn-based, I think it does. You know, you're being a little more responsible, and it's nice.
The Indians are one of a growing number of major league teams greening up more than the outfield grass. The Washington Nationals' new stadium has energy-saving lights. And in San Francisco, the Giants use the 7th inning stretch to collect recyclable trash from fans.
One thing unique about baseball is it's just such a family environment. If you raise the consciousness of those families, I think we recognize that platform's here for us.
Still, even the greenest ballparks leave a huge carbon footprint. The Indians last year produced nearly 2 million pounds of landfill waste and consumed enough electricity to power a small town.
And perhaps the biggest source of waste is the thousands of cars and trucks that fans take to every single game.
How much is this is symbolism and how much is it really making an effort to put it down?
Well, it's a little of both, but the symbolic side of it's important because I believe firmly and we believe firmly in the ripple effect.
In coming seasons, the Indians hope to add wind and geothermal power to the mix, a team stepping up to the plate to reduce its impact on the world. For Focus Earth, I'm Eric Hong in Cleveland.